Well, who could forget Danny the Hitman Ferry? Danny Ferry had one of the longest tenures in the NBA. That was the most confusing of any I've probably seen. He had his moments where he fit perfectly on a team in Cleveland. Back when they still had Mark Price on the team, and with Elo's departure, Ferry was good to come in and play that tough guy. He was always a fiery, tough guy from Duke. And once his hair went and he started going and shaving his head bald, he gave him a new tough man edge. He became Danny the Hitman Ferry, the rugged guy, as well as a guy who could shoot. He had great form on his shot, but he was always very slow. And he never liked Michael Jordan. Never liked him. And I'll never forget the time he punched Michael Jordan in the mouth a couple of times. And Michael Jordan drew his fist back to punch him. And then he just curled up in the ball and went away. And in Cleveland, he became an icon. Danny the Hitman Ferry. Ever since that day, and Mike has made them pay every single time. Now, moving right along, Danny Ferry played the most games in Cleveland till Gauskas broke his record. He was originally drafted by the Clippers, but he predominantly didn't mesh well with, I would say, the African Americans. To be fair, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that he just never really dealt with them on that level. And for the position that he was training for when he was with the San Antonio Spurs and he retired in '05, and they kind of made him an assistant general manager and he moved straight to front office because he went to Duke. This was this is what I mean by too much too fast. They moved him to the front office in Cleveland, where the owners brought him in, and it looked as if he started the revolution in Cleveland with LeBron and going to the Eastern Conference Finals and doing all of these different moves. Where him and LeBron, and a lot of people don't know, weren't seeing eye to eye for a large period of time. And once this was happening and they were bumping heads because he felt Ferry wasn't giving him the right pieces to win a title and weren't listening to what LeBron had to say. LeBron reportedly went to management, to ownership, to complain and went to Dan Gilbert and was like, I can't do this with this guy. So they come to a mutual agreement that Ferry, should part ways with Cleveland. So he had 1 month left on his contract anyway, and they were not going to renew him. Um, he kind of came into a situation, and that was already, going to blow. The only thing he brought to the team was, I think, Antoine Jameson. He brought Shaq over, and he signed Mo Williams. Those are probably the only players I could see that he really like brought over. That's it. Um, that was any stature. But anyway, he goes for the buyout, and his time and tenure is done. This is June 2010. Now let's move to the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks have new ownership, and their new ownership had two faces: Bruce Levinson, who was part of this ownership group, and Michael Gearson Jr. These guys were the face of the investment group that won the bid to to get the Atlanta Hawks. And the Atlanta Hawks was thriving at that point of making revenue and doing well and trying to turn things around and turn the corner in Atlanta and start doing new things by getting more modern. They felt the Atlanta Hawks was too much like a relic, and all their highlights was from the 80s and nothing from the 90s. Then in 2012, a decision was made by the majority owner, who was Bruce Levinson, to bring in Danny Ferry as general manager of the Atlanta Hawks in 2012. Now, here's the thing. Danny Ferry was given one of the biggest contracts ever for an NBA executive. And Gearson's Jr., his family, they all had ties with the Atlanta Hawks for about 10 years, period. Ferry was like a newcomer. And he was expected to do like a whole massive turn the team into a contender type of mentality right off the bat. But the thing about Ferry's contract allow him to report over Gearson and go straight to Levinson, who was the majority owner, which was basically cutting Michael Gearson Jr. out. Now, here's the bigger problem. They clashed. Gearson and Ferry clashed about certain decisions of what to do. Now, Ferry wanted to fire the team trainers. Gearson wouldn't allow it. He wanted to come in and fire certain people. He wanted Wally Blas gone. He wanted Pete Radukovich gone. Gearson had a personal relationship with these trainers. And to Gearson, this was Radulovich was like a personal hero to him. And that the Hawks function as a family. He's okay. He's all around. Look, he's okay with building the team around, and trying to get younger, but you got to have some foundation. And Ferry didn't care about any of them. Ferry looked like, look, they were losers. Get rid of everybody. So Ferry said they're not meeting their responsibilities. And they got to go. So Garrison went out of his way and he asked the players on the team if they agreed that, and it wasn't the case. Danny Ferry was just what he was, the hitman, the bully. So in an email, the owners, Garrison Jr., put it out like this. I get the sense Danny either doesn't respect or value my opinion, which should be given to you, and then you communicate my words to Danny. This is what Garrison wrote to Levinson in a 2012 email. This seems very bureaucratic to me. I have built 3 separate billion-dollar businesses in my career in 4 countries. I have some of the savviest investors in the world, as well as some of the wealthiest individuals in the world, asking me for my thoughts on different subjects. Yet, for a team I have been involved with either directly or indirectly for approximately 35 years, the new general manager doesn't feel a need to have a direct communication with me. And that was the main problem. Then came the icing on the cake. Danny Ferry wanted to fire Dominique Wilkins. The human highlight film. Dominique was the TV analyst for the Atlanta Hawks at the time and basically was hired just to be the face because he is Hawks history and an icon in Atlanta. So having more Dominique there benefits than not having him there at all. So this was a big fallout by everybody involved. It led to a majority shakeup because mysteriously an email pops up out of nowhere. Because Livingston isn't going to do anything about it. He didn't care. He liked Danny Ferry. Period. That was his friend. So in this words, his friend could do no wrong. Now, let's move on to the next situation with this email. There's an email that surfaces in the summer. And once this email surfaced with Danny Ferry referring to Luol Deng as saying he has a little African in him. And that was it. That was it. And Livingston, in an email, conference call or whatever, was kind of put out there the phrase as if he felt more comfortable hanging out with people that look like him rather than hanging out with a bunch of blacks. Which isn't going to work well when you're working in a league that's like 80% African American, if not higher. So let me see, how did it go? Because Livingston became like confused. The notorious email was part of these large threads, and it got obtained by everybody in the globe. And Gearson didn't express any outrage over the content of Livingston's remarks or even a cautionary warning. His response at the time was to forward an email exchange between Livingston and Ferry to fire off a fresh bout of his frustration at Danny Ferry. Because a lot of people are going to say, thank you, Gearson Jr. You are the hero, the whistleblower who exposed all of these things. So once this came to play, the other owners decided they got to go. So in order to do that, you have to buy people out. So Livingston sold his shares of the company and was out. Now they had to deal with Gearson, who agreed to sell part of his ownership, his part of the ownership in 2013 in exchange for a deal that would ensure the job security of Dominique Wilkins, Blase, and Rodriguez. Then when those emails came out, And Danny Ferry's comments about Dane came out. Wrestler took over the majority shares, and Blase and Radonovich, they were fired anyway. Wilkins is still part of the franchise, and Gearson, he's still hundreds of millions of dollars richer, but he is out. Now you got wrestler and the president, Mike Bolzenhauser. And Bolzenhauser, which you guys should all know, was hired by Danny Ferry. To tell you how crazy that is. But like I said, everybody wants to treat Gearson Jr. as if he was a hero. He sprung to action. He saw an injustice and he did something about it. That's how y'all want to treat him. That's how all of you want to treat him. Let me explain to you when this happened, when they had a conference call in which he made this comment that he recorded with Ferry about that statement. He laughed. He chuckled when Ferry said what he said. He had no problem with what Danny Ferry said about Little Old Dane. Not at all. He didn't do it for no moral reasons. He didn't do it because he felt this was an injustice and this is wrong. He did it because he felt undermined. That Danny Ferry would not communicate directly with him and go over his head and felt he didn't have to. And in his contract, he didn't have to. So he felt like, why should I talk to Gearson? Gearson was upset over the hi-hat treatment. That a general manager would treat him in such a way that he blew up the entire team because of it. So don't think he did this for any moral reason. When his owner in the email was telling him about all this, who he wanted to hang out with and this and that, about blacks, and he didn't come out and complain. He didn't care. He waited till it suited him best. So Danny Ferry was on a leave of absence until they could remove him and buy him out in 2015. But now you have the full story of what happened in Atlanta. And are they in the better hands now? Who knows? But all we do know is, hey, it is what it is. A lot of snakes was pulled to the surface. Then the Don Imus situation happened, and we all know from Don Imus and everything else what transpired and what's happening. And if you were listening to the Don Imus conversations, you hear that he wasn't alone. There's other owners that feel and have this same type of mentality. And he states it. So who are these other buddies? Who are these other owners? Guess we'll never know until we know. But I'm out. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification buttons. You know how to do it.